Hey, what's up, Steelers Nation? I'm Tyler Feldman. The offseason, the season, it is over. And thank you, Joey Porter, for giving us some content here on a Wednesday night.
And I'm Ben Bobick. I've been blessed to be on this earth for nearly 32 years, but I hope that's enough for me to be able to talk about Steelers business.
And I'm Wayne Candy. Tell them why you're mad, Peasy. Tell them why you're mad. Let's go here on the Pittsburgh Steelers Squad show.
Wave those terrible towels. It's the Steelers Squad. Everything Pittsburgh Steelers every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Steel City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the steel curtain to the next generation, the Steelers Squad show starts now.
Yes, it does. This is the Steelers Squad show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. He's 15-year NFL veteran Wayne Gandy. He's Pittsburgh native Ben Bobick. And I'm your host, fellow Pittsburgher, Tyler Feldman. On tonight's show, we had to sprinkle in a little juice thanks to Joey Porter. Peasy, your boy Wayne, coming in hot on a podcast, saying some things about Ben Roethlisberger. And let's just dive into it. I'll start by saying we know Ben Roethlisberger's history, okay? We know the off the field. We know the on the field. What Joey Porter said on the podcast, he said in large sum, he's a bad teammate. Didn't shock me. Sometimes teammates, Wayne, and you could probably speak more on this, but sometimes don't have to like the guy, but he's a big part of why the Steelers won those Super Bowls. So, Wayne, your thoughts on what Peasy said, just letting it fly on a random podcast here. Not random, a nice podcast, but now we get to talk about it on our podcast.
Well, guys, it's 2026. We still haven't matured to where the media really wants it completely raw. They don't want it really completely raw. And I say that meaning that we as athletes have been trained to run and jump, but we've also been trained to always come off as though everything is kumbaya. Well, when you retire and you don't have a lot of people to answer to, you get to say what you really feel, as long as you're under that corporate structure mindset. Sometimes, and I think we've all been experiencing here, especially when guys are no longer playing or no longer coaching or no longer under some sponsorship deal, you get a little more of really how guys feel. Now, imagine that with a guy like Peasy, who was always kicking at the door of being this way anyway. And then you get these comments. Now, what made me laugh is these guys just went into the Steelers Hall of Fame together. Ben Roethlisberger, Joey Porter, and Pouncey. They just, I just watched the three guys, 3 speeches. They will always be linked. Probably when you see them on the Steelers wall, they'll probably go in that row. So it's one of those things that at that point, sitting there watching, Joey was very cordial and never really said or hinted to any issue with Ben. But wow, to be able to go out and not only say that you're not a good person, you're not a good teammate. To unwrap that, we would have to really stay here the whole show. But my opinion is that come on, guys, you usually get one or the other. That somebody gets up there, they say he's a great guy, just not good in the locker room, or he's great in the locker room, and you just might not feel like he is a good person. But Joey threw down the gauntlet. And we know Ben Roethlisberger and in his time retired, he hasn't been shy of letting some things go on his own. So I'm excited to see what comes next. And you have to believe I played with Joey. I didn't play with Ben, but I did play 4 years with Joey. I don't know him to be a liar. How about that? I don't know him to exaggerate. He's a comedic guy. It's in your face. It's kind of raw. You might not like it that way, but he usually doesn't. It doesn't end where he's lying on a situation. So my first initial is just wow, Ben and Tyler. Wow.
I laid out the eyes emoji, sharing it on social media. It was recorded, this podcast, and I said random. Apologies to Cam Hayward. It was on his Not Just Football podcast. I don't know where my head was to start the show. I was just so excited. But he said it on Cam Hayward's podcast. And to your point, Wayne, you don't know him to be a liar. It was so casual. It's not like – it didn't sound like he was lying at all. Why would he say that? Why would you just make something up like that unless you want to see Big Ben's podcast do some numbers, because you know he's going to respond now. That's just the name of the game at this point. So, Ben, I want to hear your thoughts, because we grow up as fans. Not everything's always kumbaya, but saying it on Cam Hayward's podcast, not a good teammate, not a good person. And we know about the off-the-field stuff growing up where your parents were like, man, do we look up to Ben in that light? Did he lead by example? Not always the case. And so, Ben, your thoughts on Peasy just letting it fly?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and lead this before I start talking. Ben Roethlisberger is my favorite player in the NFL ever. So let me say that. So when people say, when you bring up Ben, I get real defensive about it. But it's a little bit different from this sort of situation, because it's a former teammate. But also you have to remember Joey Porter was in that locker room as a coach for a number of years during Ben's prime years as well. I think when it comes down to, when I see this play out, it's like, what's the gain from this, man? Like, what do you? This really isn't anything new, like you said, Tyler. Like, we all kind of knew Ben's early goings. We know what happened, the reputation he had, and whatnot, and it just what's really to gain from it? What did you want out there that we didn't already know? And like you said, it kind of provides some entertainment for us to sit back and see it. Huge for Ben and his next podcast, because everyone's going to be listening to it now, so he's going to pop a number. But I think when it comes down to, I think the thing that really, I guess, like not really perked my interest was him saying he doesn't deserve, or he shouldn't be talking on Steelers business. Hey, listen, like, he may have been a bad teammate. He may not be the best person in the world, but to say he's not allowed or shouldn't be talking on Steelers business, I'm not so sure there are many people who have, haven't earned the right like Ben did. He played nearly 20 years for the Steelers. He may not have been a good teammate, may not have been the best person, but listen, man, he was the Steelers quarterback. He won 2 Super Bowls, went to 3. When he says stuff, people are going to listen, and people are going to listen even more now after you said this. So I just really don't know what's so much to gain from it. But like you said, it doesn't really surprise me. None of that, what he said, he's a bad teammate, really surprises me. But I think at the end of the day here, we all saw this. We all saw this coming, because people said, hey, how much of this team was Mike Tomlin holding together? Clearly the entire organization and out of it, because Mike Tomlin steps away, and boom, even the vets and the guys that are retired are fighting already. So it's already coming undone how much Tomlin was holding it together.
Wayne, you were there on the Friday night ahead of the induction into the Hall of Honor with those 3 guys, and I know you mentioned it, but for Peasy to say, quote, Harrison broke the brotherhood, talking about James Harrison, then 7, talking about Ben Roethlisberger, definitely broke the brotherhood. Out of anybody that should talk, he should never grab a microphone and really talk Steeler business, because if we talk Steelers business, he is a foul of all foul. The crap that he did is foul of all foul. He's not a good teammate. Now, this is just a clip of a podcast. I think more so in this instance, talking about how Ben went on his podcast and talked about Mike Tomlin in a way that maybe irritated Peasy. Wayne, do you think that could be the case of Peasy kind of backing up Mike Tomlin a little bit here in this situation?
Sure. You have to really believe that when it comes to a team, it gets divided. And that doesn't mean you can't go out and win. Sometimes it's the head coaches guys, sometimes it's the OC guys, and then there's the DC. It's not always this big picture of everybody loving each other as much as people want to believe on the pro level, because we're all here to do a job. And people like Ben, and there's great Hall of Famers that some guys they're just great players. They didn't come here really to do the other part. They didn't, we kind of saw that with someone like a Barry Sanders. He just wanted to run the football. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to celebrate the touchdown. He was a no trouble guy, but you could tell I'm great at this. I can make a living doing it. Ben was a great football player. You can never take that. And I'm with Ben as well of saying he has just as much right as any Steeler at any point to weigh in on what he feels, and someone has to listen. But you can tell that there was some point where there became Team Ben and Team Tomlin. And, it become one of those, who are we going to listen to? Who are we going to ride with? And to me, that was always something that built up, and we see it in a lot of sports where, and that doesn't mean you can't bring up the championship banner. That just means that, your ear goes with different, especially quarterbacks. Sometimes they don't like the offensive coordinator. They come in and call another play and dare him to pull him out the game. It's very comedic sometimes in the huddle. Y'all, your guys just – but to watch Joey go out.
I can only imagine.
Especially, from my era, they would look at the band and that's not going to work. Let's do this. And then they would argue. But it becomes team, and I believe that Joey is Team Tomlin, a man who gave him, like Ben said, a chance to coach, that really bought into the system of how the Steelers play. And there is a certain amount of ego you put to the side to be a Steeler. It is that kind of brotherhood without, everybody likes to get to the podium and the brotherhood. The one thing you always notice with the Steelers, they never say that. They just are that. They don't make an announcement of a brotherhood. They just are a brotherhood. So I think this was totally about Joey, most likely as Team Tomlin. And Joey's one of those elephant-minded kind of people. It can happen today, or it could have happened 12 years ago. Deion Sanders talked about keeping receipts. Joey keeps the whole roll. That's what made him. And truly, that was the kind of what made him such a good player. He fed off of that kind of thing about some incident that you didn't even know we had beef about. And he would take that to the field and play with it. But what great way to start the offseason. We thought we would have to make some stuff up, and Joey lands it right there at our feet.
You can see the rundown if you're watching this live, what was going to be talked about. I added in Porter Big Ben beef at the top, and we might keep talking about this a little bit longer because it's just so fascinating. Ben, I'm interested to see the aftermath from all parties involved. Hey, maybe there was more to that Antonio Brown Facebook Live in the locker room than we actually thought. Maybe he was trying to showcase that brotherhood in real time. Hey, we'll never know. We'll never know. Ben, obviously the adoration, the love for Big Ben, it has to be there. There's no Super Bowls without that man in that position on that team. But you think about all the egos that had to be dealt with through the Mike Tomlin era now. I mean, Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. It's amazing that they were able to actually accomplish what they accomplished. Now, the Killer Bees never won a Super Bowl together, but, man, I was just a little bit taken aback, like not shocked by Peasy's comments, but just this is the state of the Steelers right now. There's this vitriol, it seems like, this unknown, and it has Steelers Nation scared. It's like, where's this team, this franchise going? Now we've got Peasy talking badly about Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm sure it's warranted, but in the olden days, I don't think Dan Rooney would have stood for this. You keep that business behind closed doors and you figure it out. That's not the case anymore.
No, that's especially in this day and age, and everybody's got a microphone too. Everyone does. Like Ben's got his podcast, and everyone's kind of going everywhere. And another point too to mention, I think it was on a Instagram. I think Mason Rudolph commented. Mason Rudolph commented on the post and said, "Go off," and tagged Joey Porter with the bullet point emoji. So that was something that adds intrigue to it as well, because I think about Mason's relationship with Ben when he came in, and everybody loves to bring up the $1 million question when a young quarterback gets drafted behind Ben. Well, you think Ben's going to be a mentor to you? And I remember some words getting, and it's never like, what do you want me to say? Yeah, like I want the, but like they never do. And you could tell that that they had an intriguing relationship from the start. I know Ben obviously didn't want to go, and And then obviously there was some sort of rocky relationship there. Clearly, if Mason Rudolph's taking time out of his day to make it known, a guy that's actually on the Steelers right now, that's playing, that for all we know may even get an opportunity to be the Steelers quarterback next year. But that was interesting as well. I think Mike Mitchell also commented on it. There was some other ones, but Mason Rudolph was the one that stood out to me because for obvious reasons, he's a younger guy and clearly still on the team.
Ben, let's hold it right there. We'll pick up from that spot right there when we come back right here on the Locked On Steelers Squad show. But first, if you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know just how impactful that mistake can be. So when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just resume buzzwords. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role and that make a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, welcome back. Second quarter here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Wayne Gandy, Ben Bobick. I'm Tyler Philbin. Thanks for spending your Wednesday night with us. Thanks to Peasy, Joey Porter on Cam Hayward's podcast that was recorded during the Super Bowl week. We get to talk about what he said about Ben Roethlisberger being a bad teammate and not a good person either. And so, Ben, you left us off with Mason Rudolph's comment to what Peasy said. And that tickled me a little bit because part of my frustration with where the Steelers are at right now, and it has to be for a lot of Steelers Nation, is the quarterback position. And the reality is when Ben departed and left, he never really left that room, that position room in great shape. It was just like, okay. And so seeing Mason comment on that interests me because the reality of the situation is there's a lot of truth to that, it seems. Wayne, what do you think about that? Ben kind of leaving that quarterback room, not to dry, but wasn't in great shape. And I'm not saying every situation's perfect. You can look at Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. But I think the league has changed where now you're seeing more veteran guys mentor. Or maybe there's situations, but that never seemed to be the case with Ben Roethlisberger.
Well, I think the way he was just a hard-nosed, tough guy that put it all out there. When they used to talk about, oh, yeah, Ben's like Brett Favre. They're not about to sit there and help anybody do anything. And that's just the style they play with.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you go to your job and see the young, new, less expensive, more vibrant employee sitting next to you. You're not going to bend over and try to make everything peaceful for them. So I never thought Ben was going to do this mentorship. But one thing you just said, Tyler, is that, you know, we as Steeler fans have to understand the new order of athlete has become the majority. So, you know, the mindset, the guys, they're social media guys. They're not taught to hold their tongue, their peace, as much as a lot of other athletes at different times in history have been. And I just thought that, you know, one thing that I've always felt like what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room forever. It's not something that is up to me to bring to the forefront. And I think that just Ben and the things, and Ben has said some different things that have taken me back. for, like he seems to have had a lot of built up something in him over the years that it was hard for him. And the one thing, if you play, quarterbacks, starting pitchers, the top NBA, things get catered to them. They have the power of skipping over the head coach and walking up to the owner or the GM and giving the audience a little more. And we saw this years ago where Richard Sherman was having an issue with Russell Wilson out there and felt like, wanted to get in a brawl. Actually got put out of Seattle based on that, having that beef with Russell, in my opinion. But I just think that Ben, some people wanted Ben to be something that he wasn't, and just didn't understand that he just wanted to be a great football player. And the way that he played, to me, kind of erases a lot of what anybody would say. I'm like Ben, where it just erases, because we saw him patch it up, stitch it up, and still dive into the end zone. And you just don't get that anymore in football.
Yeah, the way in which Ben played the game, man, I miss it. I miss it. I miss those Steelers teams, and that's thanks in large part to the way and the toughness that he brought to the football field. Ben, I just want to get your closing thoughts on this as a whole. I feel like you've been biting at the tongue all day to talk about this.
Yeah, no, I looked up because I remember seeing that comment, so I wanted to go and pulled up the clip, and it was actually a clip from Cam Hayward's podcast, and so the whole clip was pretty much basically like to Wayne's point. He mentioned it seems to be like a team Ben sort of team Tomlin sort of thing. It was basically one of those things where Joey Porter was defending Mike Tomlin and defending him in the sense of like, why are these people talking bad on him? Why are they then he brings up James Harrison, of course, and then he goes into the Ben's comments. So I think that's important to note. There wasn't just the clip about, Ben Roethlisberger, but still, that's obviously included in there, and you're not going to not comment on it if you don't believe about the whole clip he's saying. Obviously, we know Mason Rudolph has had a great relationship with Coach Tomlin. He penned that nice farewell letter to him on social media a few weeks ago that I thought was awesome from him. But it's just one of those things where it's like I just don't know what's the gain from it, man. I just like. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Ben's going to say whatever he wants, and people are going to listen. Joey's going to say whatever he wants, and people are going to listen. They're great. They're great. They're Steelers all-time greats. They've all been there, done that. But it is interesting. But it's just nothing new. Like what do you? I don't know what do you want? But people to say, oh, Ben, no, I'm not going to listen to Ben anymore because Joey told me not to. Like, guess what? Ben Roethlisberger is going to be a Hall of Famer. He might even be a first ballot Hall of Famer for all we know, but he's going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He's going to get a gold jacket. He's going to get his moment in Canton, as he should. And it's like, so what more do you want here? I mean, I think it's something we all already sort of assume, but everybody leads differently. We all really don't know the X's and O's of it all. But for example, think about Aaron Rodgers. At least his reputation. Everybody outside the football world, that going in talking about Aaron Rodgers before this season or whatnot, or just whatever it is, like, he's not really a good guy. He has this bad reputation, doesn't talk to his family. And then he comes and plays for the Steelers. And I don't think a single person said a bad thing about him when it comes to him being a locker room guy. So they're saying Ben is a bad locker room guy. And it doesn't really surprise us. But then Aaron Rodgers is a bad guy for a lot of people, but a good locker room guy. And it's like, what's it matter, man? These are football players. They're paid to play a game. And I think I guess from a fan's perspective, it's disappointing because I love Ben Roethlisberger and I love Joey Porter, and I don't want to see some of my favorite players fighting because I love them for who they were as Steelers. But you can't hide from the truth, and I understand that. And I'm a grown up; I could take it on the chin. Hey, maybe Ben wasn't the best guy, maybe he wasn't the best teammate overall, but he provided me, you, and everybody with some of the greatest memories that we've ever had as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, as a sports fan. And quite frankly, that's all I really care about.
That's a great thought there, Ben. It's too bad that they got inducted into the Hall of Honor this past year, because when will they be together again to maybe talk this out? I'd love to see them both take the high road and come together, whether it's peasy on Ben's podcast just to hash it out and get over whatever caused those rifts. I just think that as time goes on, I do hope that, Wayne, do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible?
And that's how I started. When you make both of those statements, it's hard to get over that. You're not thinking I'm a good teammate. Okay. But you telling me I'm not a good teammate and I'm not a good person sounds personal. It sounds like you're evaluating me in my entirety, and I don't see any way back from that. If it happened to me, it'd be just somebody we don't have to. I wouldn't find any way to find any fight, but I definitely wouldn't find any peace. There is not a handshake. That's just the alpha in both of them. And if you're sitting there and Ben, and this is coming back to you, no matter, where you are, Joey's still holding you to whatever it was you were those years ago. We don't know where Ben is, but you put that out today, and that's how he will get labeled, at least from your perspective. And that's not part of your job description. What's part of your job description is showing up on Sunday, playing football, trying to win some football games. That's what Ben Roethlisberger did. And from that aspect, he gets all high marks. That's there's no question about his game. It's not if he's going to Canton. It's really just drive over right now and just put him in.
In 20 years, Bob Pompiani will still be the sports director at KDKA TV in Pittsburgh. Ben, could you imagine a world where they do some 20, 35, 40-year anniversary of the Super Bowl team and Joey Porter and Ben start on opposite sides, and then they come together, shake hands as old men, and hug it out, and Pompanate is there to tell the story? Is that something you could visualize?
Absolutely, man. I'm even thinking if it ever even comes sooner, I could just imagine Aaron Rodgers leading the Steelers to the playoffs again next year. Wild card game at home against the Jaguars, and it's Big Ben and Joey leading the terrible towel twirl before the game, and that place is going to be rocking, and it'll just lead right into yet another 34-17 loss for the Steelers in the wild card round. We'll have that moment.
I mean this wholeheartedly, not even joking. Ben, that visual of them twirling the terrible towel together, I hope and pray. I don't think it's realistic, not at this point. But that is the kind of unity and forgiveness and camaraderie that I would love to see from two of the biggest leaders on their respective sides of the ball on that Super Bowl and on those Super Bowl winning teams. Again, I know that's, but I hate to see this, Ben. You said it, and you can't hide from the truth. But we could talk about this forever. I mean, Wayne, any final thoughts on this transpiring? I guess from an athlete's perspective, former Steeler perspective, in this day and age of media, it's got to be hard in these podcasts, these casual situations. It's not like a camera's in front of you in an interview for TV. It's you're put in a relaxed state to share some of these truths. So from your perspective, any final thoughts on what happened here?
Sure. It puts you in a very comfortable situation. You're having casual conversation. There's no suit and tie. You're just on the couch. You're talking almost like you're taking a road trip together. Even, you can use the language you want to use. There's less, and you want, especially when you're trying to drive the podcast, you want these kind of moments. The only thing, it just seems, as you even said, Tyler, it seems that Joey was being truthful. It didn't seem like it was something where it didn't seem like he was trying to force this conversation. He had a side that he had chosen, which was Team Tomlin, and he was going to defend it. That's Joey Porter. If he's with you, he's with you. So it's just sad that these two guys, especially for this organization, have to be at this point.
It is, but it was fun to talk about. It's interesting. Never a dull moment in the NFL, in particular with these Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, when we come back here, it is halftime on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. We will discuss Super Bowl 60. That was our plan to kick things off on this show. We will get to that next. It was the Seahawks victorious, a Seahawks team that beat the Steelers early on, and they're Super Bowl champs. We'll get Wayne's thoughts and Ben's. That's next, right here on the Squad Show. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years, and that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the drop of the puck. Even niche sports and events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, second half, third quarter here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Wayne Gandy, Ben Bobick, I'm Tyler Feldman. Thanks for spending your Wednesday night with us. No Chris Carter. He is handling other business here this evening. You can catch his Monday through Friday Locked On Steelers daily podcast. A lot of great content as well. Gentlemen, we have to talk about the Super Bowl, the big game. First of all, I love broadcasters. Mike Tirico was fantastic. I know this is an odd way to start this conversation, but I just got to give him his flowers. That man's unbelievable. Calls a great game, puts up with Chris Collinsworth, and then after the game goes down to the field, tees up the Olympic coverage, and then flies to Milan to anchor the coverage there. Now, granted, he's probably flying pretty cushy. It's not probably a tough commute, given that that was the situation. But kudos to Mike Tirico, to NBC. It was a really well-produced game, a game that was not all that exciting. Wayne, your thoughts on the Seahawks? The better team won. We all predicted the Seahawks to win last week. So they were the best team, and they were red hot down the stretch. I'm happy for Sam Darnold. Your thoughts?
Well, Seattle and really just their ability to get into playoffs and not turn the ball over, not beat themselves. No better time when you get into the playoffs than to get in there. And I think we all talked about, and Ben mentioned Kenneth Walker, and I was talking about the lines of scrimmage, and they dominated the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Kenneth Walker, looks like he was Le'Veon Bell. And I'm talking about like second-year Steeler Le'Veon Bell, where he was walking up to the line. He was kind of half asleep. He was looking over to the left, and then he just chews a hole. I mean, there was no penetration. The D-line, I don't think, ever tackled him. He was just hitting big holes, and then defensively, people, the Patriots. You know what happened to the Patriots? The Seattle defense. That's what happens sometimes. You try to write up something to make it seem like all of this. No, the Seattle defense that night decided that Drake May and these receivers, I don't know, Drake May had a bad game. Where would you like me to throw the ball? There's literally nobody open. So unless I'm going to evoke my Lamar Jackson, which I don't have that in me, I'm going to get sacked because there's nobody open right now on some of those routes that they were running. But it was just poetic the way Seattle really just manhandled the whole playoff situation. They were dominant, more physical, well-coached, and kudos to them.
Not a single turnover committed by the Seahawks throughout the playoffs. Just incredible. And I covered Byron Murphy when he played at Texas here at Austin, and just to see him play and that defensive front, that Seahawks defense was legit. Gonzalez, number 0 in the secondary for the Patriots. That was the only guy who really stood out in all white. Ben, your thoughts on the Super Bowl? You called it with Walker. I mean, he just walked all over them. It was unbelievable.
crazy to think he's the first running back since Terrell Davis to be the MVP too. You think about some of the good performances. I think about the one that comes to mind right off the hilt is Super Bowl 54 when they gave it to Mahomes, the Chiefs' first Super Bowl with Mahomes, and they gave it to him, and it probably should have been Damian Williams, but he's not here nor there in a few of those situations, but. You know what? It went about what we thought it would go. They are who we thought they were, if you will. Like we thought, hey, the Seahawks are the better team. They're playing well, but you still had to play the game. And that was our the big but there. You still have to play the game. But Drake May really struggled throughout the playoffs, I thought, but everything just sort of lined up for him, and it kind of just was too overwhelming in this ball game for obvious reasons. The Seahawks. I think it's. I have a friend of mine who's always a big proponent of. I can always hang my hat on a season and feel content no matter who it is when the best team wins the championship at the end of the year, because sometimes it's not always the case. And I think the Seahawks were the clear-cut best team in the NFL this year, and they won the championship. And I think there's credit to that. And I also want to, tip of the cap to the Patriots defense. You mentioned Christian Gonzalez, who had a really good game. But, I mean, you think about the Pats team, and they held them in this game for as long as they could. And until they turned the ball over, and that's when it became 19-0 there in the fourth quarter, because it was 9-0 going into the fourth. The Patriots were still one big play away from being right back in it. And in terms of, all right, this is a 2-point game. We got the momentum on our side at the right time, and it just never lined up. But you have to tip the cap to the Patriots defense because they played great as well. They took away JSN pretty well for much of this game. Obviously, Kenneth Walker did his thing. He was the MVP. But I do think New England's defense, deserves a little credit because I think they did keep them in the game for probably longer than they should for as bad. Not even, I don't want to say the Patriots offense played bad. Sure, they played bad. I just think Seattle's defense just played that good.
Mike McDonald, 38 years old, third youngest to win a Super Bowl. Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin, both were 36. Pretty impressive what he did. He's calling the defensive plays too, Wayne. He's calling the defense, and he's the head coach. And you just don't see that a ton in this era. And you combine that, the Sam Darnold story to me is just, I know he's the quarterback. It's the most important position on the field, but bouncing around, not sure if he'd pan out. Highly touted quarterback out of USC. Led the Trojans to a crazy Rose Bowl victory over Saquon Barkley and Penn State. Sorry, I was just pausing. In memory, in memoriam for that.
What a great game that was, man.
It was a great game. It was a great game. But I'm happy for Sam Darnold. I don't know. It was easy to root for this Seahawks team. It wasn't like the Chiefs, who I didn't want to win. It wasn't like this Patriots team. The Seahawks were kind of easy to root for. I don't know what you think, Wayne.
Yeah, I think the guys that find themselves like a Sam Darnold, and we see them that try to go to these teams with the number one pick, and they just can't get over it. They cannot get that team over the hump. It's just too many parts that are missing. And then they get labeled and for the failure as though it was just on them. But if you got the first pick of the draft, that means you basically probably got like two players, and you're just hoping that you can figure out some kind of way that by year 3, with a new coach most likely, you can be competitive because you typically have that many holes. And I think Sam Darnold becomes that darling because of the perseverance that, even when drafted, there was people saying, I remember Troy Aikman saying he was a guy with a lot of talent, but needed to be put on the shelf until he could learn how to play the game. And it was just good to see him go to a team and back up. I think the best part of it was that we thought that what he did the year before was just, that's just a fluke. And then he was able to go to another team, have a superior record, and finish it off with a Super Bowl.
And the Vikings were not in the playoffs this year, so I'm sure they've already made some changes. So they're reconfiguring after that mistake. Speaking of Troy Aikman, he'll be on the call of the Super Bowl next year with Joe Buck. First time ever, ESPN will be the home of the Super Bowl. So just for all you Super Bowl fans out there, that's the situation. But Ben, what other takeaways do you have from this game? It was kind of sluggish. I enjoyed Bad Bunny at halftime. I think visually from a TV sitting at home, boy, it was awesome. It was just really cool visually. It was a nice big celebration, but I thought the game had some lulls to it. I didn't think the commercials were all that, just from a broad look. It's just a different era. Maybe things are more sensational when you're younger and you just get older and it's not. I don't know, but any lingering thoughts about the Super Bowl, Ben?
You mentioned the commercials. You know why they stink? Is because they all release them before the game. So you see all the a lot of the good ones on social media before the game.
I didn't see any of them. I didn't see any of them.
Good
so
for
even
you.
I was
good.
I'm off the grid. I'm off the grid.
Yeah, go good. You know what? I'm going to take your advice, take your way of living next year, because it really ruined some of them. I look forward to, kind of you're glued to the TV, if you will, the whole time. And that brings the cultural aspect in it too. Like, you don't have to be a football fan to watch the Super Bowl. But that was a downfall of some of this social media, this era. We're seeing some of these commercials before the big game, and it kind of just is like, well, now I can go to the bathroom during the commercials again like I do on a normal game, since I already saw this one, on Thursday on social media. Bad Bunny was awesome. Visually awesome. Everything about it. The fact that they had a real wedding in the middle of the halftime performance was insane. As it was happening, I was like, I think it's a real wedding. And the people I were watching were like, I'm betting, the guy was just saying stuff, just to say, and the people I were watching with my friends were obviously giving me a hard time. I'm like, I'm telling you guys, that might have been a real wedding up there. And sure enough, it was, which was awesome. The story behind that was sweet. And you know what really got me with the halftime show was Ricky Martin. I'm a big Ricky Martin guy, man. What does he look fantastic?
Yeah, great hairline.
For his age.
Great hairline.
Great hair. I mean,
is that a real hairline?
Awesome.
No, that was painted. That was painted on.
I don't know. It looked good. That was a nice looking hairline.
He looked great, man. I was pumped up to see Ricky Martin in the halftime show. I thought it was great.
He's got pipes.
I know. Yeah. Oh my gosh, great tunes too, and it brings me back to our childhood in a bit. But I think the best part about it is, and I'll just full on embrace it. Everyone didn't like the game, and yeah, it stunk at times. But I can't get enough of seeing the Patriots get beat like that. I'll watch it for the rest of my life if that means the Patriots are getting beat like that. So I enjoyed every single minute of it.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Ben. I'm with you there. Well, let's end this third quarter with this question. Wayne, do the Seahawks repeat next year?
I think when you play that kind of defense and they can only get better throwing the ball. They are a team I think people want to believe, because, we didn't tune into a lot of Seahawks games. A lot of people only see the Seahawks when they play your team, because they don't have that name. They will have it next year, but they didn't have that name on their team. They don't have that coach. They didn't have any controversy to draw eyes to them for you to even be plugged into. And that's why I think a lot of people were doubting their ability to even be in that situation, but they were a good football team. And that's the thing about it. This wasn't one of those they got hot and won. They were good the entire season. And I think easily they can run it back.
And I will say, though, they did start, I think, 3-2, if I'm not mistaken. So they for the majority of the season, they played that really good football. But it just took a couple weeks for them to get there. Ben, I think it's hard to argue that, outside of the fact that they play in a really competitive division with the Rams and the 49ers, I think the 49ers get healthy and they're even tougher next season. Heck, the Rams, that game in the playoffs between the Seahawks and the Rams, you could argue that was the Super Bowl. So the only question mark I maybe have for the Seahawks repeating is, well, they play in a really tough NFC West.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind. A lot of things, when you're playing a tough division like that, as we know, especially when all teams are humming, it's tough, especially with the Niners if they get healthy, like you mentioned, and the Rams are still pretty solid. Think about all those Rams assistants that were interviewing for head coaching roles. Well, they didn't get any of those head coaching roles, so absolutely, and a lot needs to line up. You know how the course of a football season goes. Another thing you have to take into account too: offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak. He's now the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. How does that alter their offensive plan? Because Sam Darnold was sensational this year. He was great. JSN was obviously the offensive player of the year in the league. But how much did did Clint Kubiak have that? Obviously, he had a lot to do with it, but how much will that be able to transcend or transfer into next season? But absolutely, if they're able to retain a lot of that talent, no doubt. I mean, when you have a defense like that, and you're going to be set up to win some football games, and having Mike McDonald at the helm, a guy who calls the defensive plays and continues to be adaptable on defense, why not? Why not? But like you mentioned, the first thing that comes to mind is, they may not win the division next year. That doesn't really mean much as long as they make the playoffs. But we see how tough it is to play in Seattle in the playoffs, to where if they do, they're going to be a tough out again next year.
Indeed. 3 quarters done, 4th quarter left to play. When we come back, end of the year, the season's officially over. The Steelers are on the clock, and we will talk about the draft and where the Steelers should go on next week's show. We didn't get the topics discussed today because of Joey Porter's clip from the Cam Hayward podcast on Big Ben, but we do need to wrap up Bebo's Best and Wayne's World for the season. Just one final Bebo's Best, looking back at the Steelers season. And let's go back into Wayne's World, looking back at the Steelers season. And then we can start to look ahead after the 4th quarter next, right here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. All righty, 4th quarter here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show on a Wednesday. NFL veteran of 15 years, Wayne Gandy, bringing the juice. We love it. Bebo, Ben Bobick, always Pittsburgh native. No one loves the city, arguably, more than Ben Bobick. I think you'd find some competitors, but Double B has a stranglehold on it. We didn't get to the draft talk. We didn't get to draft needs and favorite players in the draft. We will save that for next week. But we do need to talk about Bebo's Best, recapping this Steelers season, and Wayne's World, looking back on this Steelers season. And Wayne, I'll start with you. When you zoom out, take a look back at the Steelers season, what's on your mind? Because we didn't know this at the start, but Mike Tomlin's final season, he didn't get a swan song. There was no, this is the last time he plays here. That's just kind of how it works. But when you look back, what's in your world, in your mind, of this season for the Steelers?
I'm very proud of this Steelers team this year. I thought that when we started this, my prediction was 10-7, make the playoffs. That was good enough to win the division. I thought that when you look at the roster and the way that the coaches, the players, as we saw in a roster just evolve until people in there. I mean, we ended up with Marquez Valdez-Scantling starting in a playoff game. I mean, you got to think. There was part, that is just confusing. Like, wow, where are we at? That was nowhere in that first 3 months of shows of that being how the lineup was going to be. On the defensive side, the secondary, Darius Slay wasn't even on the team. We talked about how this is going to be a dominant cornerback situation, and this guy's not even on the team. Warren Thornhill is not even on the team at the end of the season. Forget being a reserve. They're not on injured reserve. They're not even on this team. And the Steelers were able to, and it's disappointing that, hey, it ended with a first-round playoff loss. But to me, you have to look at your team. Did you get the most out of it? I felt that the Steelers did. If I had to go back, I said it week in and week out as we talk. If anything, I would have pressed a little more in the preseason. Some teams need that. Some teams don't. And it was around that time that the Steelers had to stop buying into the names as though the names they had brought in was just going to win the game, and accept that they're going to have to do this week to week. Each side of the ball is going to have to win them some games, and they can't take all these new parts and act like they are already in sync and basically miss the whole preseason. So you spend the first month trying to get on the same page. You're letting Broderick Jones talk about, no, we'll just get it on the fly. No, you won't. I mean, you don't get it on the fly, and you didn't get it on the fly, and you didn't even end up being on the field. We ended up with a whole another left tackle situation, Spencer Anderson package. There was a lot of things going on with the Steelers. DK being ejected for 2 games. Hey, trust me, as much as it was a distraction in the locker room, it was a failure on the field in 2 games where we really needed you, in that situation. So to me, with all of that, Coach Tomlin, his staff, Aaron Rodgers did enough to win the AFC North, and really a game even in the playoffs. They were in that game. They were doing that little thing for about 2.5 quarters where you thought they were going to find that play to win it, but they failed. But to me, I look at it, failure to me is when you have the talent to go further and you don't. The Steelers had the talent to go right to where they got to, and then they went home.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And hopefully they're well rested. That's Wayne's World recapping the Steelers season. I like it, Wayne. It's almost like you take a Capri Sun as a kid and you love it so much and you're trying to suck every last drop out of that Capri Sun until it's just tight in your fist. That's what the Steelers team did. We had fun talking about it. Obviously, they made the playoffs. They won the division. I think that speaks more about the Bengals, the Ravens, and what they didn't accomplish this year. And it speaks about the Steelers. But to your point, they should be proud. They didn't have all the talent, and they did everything they could to squeeze the juice with what they did have. Ben, looking back on the season, what was Bebo's best of this season? It could be a play, a moment, a player, a coach. You tell me. You tell us.
Yeah, Bebo's best. I'm going the player route here, and I'm going a guy that's going to get paid and should get paid. Joey Porter Jr., man. What a season that this young man. We're just sticking with the Peasy theme throughout from the top to the bottom. We start with senior. We're ending with junior here. Yeah.
Full circle.
Full circle here. Little Peasy was awesome this year, man. You think about the consecutive snaps where he didn't give up a touchdown, and he really developed into a pure lockdown corner. I mean, I can't think of how many times in the course of my lifetime the Steelers had a true lockdown guy that's budding here with Joey Porter Jr. I think he has been a sponge with a lot of the different veterans he's had a chance to work with. You think about Patrick Peterson from a few years ago, what he learned from him. You have Jalen Ramsey on the squad this year. He was able to soak in on, and I think that he's developed into a really, really lockdown corner to where a point where they still need depth in the secondary for obvious reasons. And that's something we're going to dive into plenty of times over the course of these next few weeks as we get closer to draft time. But to have him is a really good foundation, because you think about the Steelers defense, and everybody has a comment to make about, well, they have some really good, they have the defense with a lot of aging stars with TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Jalen Ramsey and Patrick Queen even maybe at that point. But listen, Peasy's 25 years old, man. He's finishing up his rookie deal. It's nice to have in a defense full of quote unquote aging stars, you have a true young star that is entering his prime that you could build a foundation on in the secondary, that had a breakout season in 2025 that could hopefully develop into a leadership role on that defense as we look to the future. It's a new era of Steelers football. It's the Mike McCarthy era of Steelers football.
It's the what?
Mike McCarthy era of Steelers football. Isn't that crazy?
Hearing it out loud from someone else, yeah, a little bit. A little
Isn't it
bit.
Crazy?
Here we go.
But I think Joey Porter Jr. is going to be a big proponent of that, and I think it's just had a great season. He's going to get paid as he should, and it's good to see. Everybody always has a comment about the Steelers and their old stars, but it's quick. You have to, in a Bebo's best sort of segment, to put a cap on the season. Let's talk about the future, because that's all we have to talk about right now, and Joey Porter Jr. being a big part of it.
And before we fast forward to next Wednesday and discuss all the Steelers draft stock, man, they have a ton of picks. They got to make some serious, smart decisions. We'll talk about that next week. Guys, any last thoughts on what we discussed tonight? Any final thoughts that you didn't get off your chest involving Joey Porter Sr. talking badly about Ben Roethlisberger? Anything you want to get off your chest? We've got a few more minutes.
I really will. I'm praying it just stays verbal. And that's just knowing the people that's involved. At some point, they will cross paths, not intentionally, but just at a casual tailgate or going to the same game. Joey Porter is, as Ben said, his son is there, so he's around Ben and how the media is driving the team. No telling where he might end up, but hopefully it doesn't become, because we're sitting here waiting on what Roethlisberger is going to say. And based on how raw he brings it, we will get to see what Peasy says. So next week we could be reporting on the reaction of Ben Roethlisberger to Joey Porter. So I'm hoping it's just one of those things. And when I say physical, I'm talking about in your face. I'm not talking about that you actually have to be
okay. Because I was like, are we gonna get a stop here?
See any kind of tension if they're ever in the same, in each other's face. And I just don't need Joey to reenact something against the Ravens at the 50-yard line where he goes down there and pick a fight. I just don't need that.
I pray for peace.
Yeah.
In the world and in this situation.
Right.
Set the egos aside, come together in love. This doesn't need to be that kind of podcast, but you get the point, okay?
Yeah.
Ben, any final thoughts?
Yeah, my mother always told me when I had any sort of argument, kill him with kindness. You don't want to, but kill him with kindness. We're all waiting to see what Ben has to say. And he could go the typical Ben route and make his comments, but he could also say, you know what? Joey Porter, I had nothing but respect for him. I had nothing but respect for Coach Tomlin. Certainly, could I have been a better teammate? Certainly. I absolutely could have been a better teammate. We all could be better teammates when you look back on the career. But listen, and I meant no ill will towards him or Coach Tomlin or any of that thing. I have nothing but respect for him. I'm sorry, my comments were skewed that way. Let's just all move on. And that's just, he has the opportunity to take the high road there. Let it be. Water under the bridge. You see him next time. Hey, man, don't do disrespect. You said what you said. None of us are surprised by it. Nothing's going to come of it, and it is what it is. And I'm hoping to see something like that because, I always was told kill him with kindness. And you know what? Everybody sort of feels better when you do something like that because I just do think Joey is just is passionate about defending Coach Tomlin. And defending him and what the coach, his resume and what he stood for. And I will too, because as much as I am a Ben Roethlisberger fan, I'm a Coach Tomlin fan. I love the man and what he's been able to bring to Steelers Nation and beyond. I'll always defend Coach Tomlin. And so I understand it, but let's just hope he takes the high road. But we'll certainly be waiting for it. We'll certainly be waiting to see what he has to say.
Oh, yes, we will. We absolutely will. Wayne Gandy played for the Steelers back in the day. Man, you brought it tonight. You bring it every night. We so appreciate it. I don't think Steelers Nation understands how grateful and how thankful we should all be to have you on this show on a weekly basis. Double B, Ben Bobick, love you, my man. Great work as always. I'm Tyler Feldman. Hey, remember to like, subscribe, and listen to the audio of tonight's show on the Locked On Steelers podcast channel. You can also catch Chris Carter's Locked On Steelers daily podcast Monday through Friday, wherever and however you podcast. Again, that'll do it, though, for this Wednesday night. Big Ben, Peasy, Beef Edition of the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Wayne Gandy, Ben Bobick, I'm Tyler Feldman saying good night, and here we go. We'll see you same time next week.